In a busy New York cafe near Grand Central, a black waitress quietly repairs a broken laptop behind the counter, unaware that a billionaire tech CEO is watching her. To the world, she's invisible. To one man, she just became unforgettable. The smell of burnt espresso and worn leather filled the air at Lex and Beans, a corner cafe tucked between high-rises and fast lives on East 41st Street. The ceiling fans creaked above a symphony of morning noise. Clattering mugs, muted phone calls, the rustle of newspapers, the quiet click of loneliness. It was 7:03 a.m. in Manhattan, and the day had begun like any other. In the far corner behind the bar, Tamara Clayton moved like a ghost with a purpose. She wore the same pale green apron she had for years, pinned with a faded name badge where only Tam still shimmered in scratched plastic. Nobody asked her name anymore. They just called out, "Hey, miss." Or, if they were feeling generous, "Excuse me." She didn't mind. Or rather, she told herself she didn't. Tamara was 34, steady-handed, and quiet. A waitress for 6 years at Lex and Beans, she worked 6 days a week, 6:30 a.m. sharp to 4 p.m., never late. She remembered every order, every regular's preference, every tiny request scribbled in chicken scratch by the morning shift manager. But it was what she did behind the scenes that no one noticed. At 7:11 a.m., with the espresso line thinning and her side station clear, she ducked behind the service counter. From beneath the register, she slid out a dented, sticker-covered Dell laptop with a shattered hinge. It belonged to Josie, one of the other servers. "Water damage," she'd said. "Won't even boot." Tamara had already replaced a fried capacitor the night before, soldering it in the tiny kitchen of her Bronx apartment with tweezers and a 10-year-old heat gun. Now she cracked the case open again and adjusted the boot sequence. Her fingers were swift, her focus complete. She didn't know someone was watching her. Not just anyone. Derek Steele, founder and CEO of Cleverbase, leaned on the glass pastry case, wearing a navy hoodie and Yankees cap. His MacBook was bricked after a botched update during the train ride from Boston. His assistant was unreachable, his files locked. He needed access, and fast. But the cafe Wi-Fi was crap. The staff seemed indifferent. That's when he saw her. At first, it didn't register. Just another worker behind the counter. But then she angled the broken screen, tapped a diagnostic command into the BIOS, and exhaled with the calm precision of a systems engineer. He tilted his head. Most waitstaff he knew couldn't tell RAM from a receipt printer. This woman just bypassed a bootloader like she'd done it 100 times. He stepped back, watched. She didn't notice him. She never did. That was the thing about Tamara Clayton. She blended in. Not because she lacked presence, but because people rarely looked long enough to see it. Back behind the bar, she gently pressed the power button. The Dell lit up with a startup chime, faint but triumphant. She gave a small, private nod. Success. She closed the lid and scribbled, "Fixed, try later," on a sticky note. Then she stood, grabbed 2 oat milk lattes, and glided toward a waiting table before anyone realized she'd been gone. Derek narrowed his eyes. He'd spent the last decade in rooms full of fake geniuses and fast talkers. People with million-dollar pitch decks who couldn't code "Hello World" if their life depended on it. But this woman, she had the hands of someone who'd stayed sharp in the shadows. "Who is she?" he muttered, mostly to himself. He stayed longer than he meant to. Watched her refill coffee, clear plates, help a lost tourist charge their phone. Not once did she look rushed. Not once did she seem to need thanks. She didn't speak unless spoken to. But when she did, her voice was low and warm, like a vinyl record, spinning something old and rich beneath the surface. By 8:30 a.m., Derek had emailed his own assistant twice to cancel 2 meetings. He ordered a second coffee just for an excuse to stay. He wasn't used to feeling curiosity like this. Not toward a stranger, not toward a waitress. But there was something in the way she worked, not with haste, with intention. At 8:17, she helped an elderly woman refill her subway card on a touchscreen kiosk that had glitched mid-transaction. She didn't ask a manager. She didn't call IT. She just restarted the app and calmly coached the woman through it. Derek watched it all. By 9:03, he approached the counter. Not with swagger, with silence. Tamara was wiping down the espresso station, a dish towel looped around her wrist. "Morning," he said. She didn't flinch. "Hey," she replied, polite but wary. Her eyes flicked up, brown, alert, and tired, in the way only people who've done too much for too long can be. "That laptop." He nodded toward the shelf behind her. "You fixed it?" A beat. Then, "Yeah. Belongs to one of the girls here. You always do that. Only when it's worth saving." He chuckled softly. "What's your background?" he asked. She straightened. "Customer service. Mostly." He didn't press, but she saw something shift in his face, like a screen flickering to life. "Name's Derek," he said, offering a hand. "Tamara." Their handshake was brief. "You ever consider working in tech?" She smiled, small and tired. "I used to." He paused. "What happened?" "My mother got sick. I had bills, and dreams don't pay rent." He studied her again. "You know you just diagnosed a BIOS issue faster than some of my engineers." She looked back at him, calm, unshaken. "I'm sure they get paid more than I do." There was no bitterness in her tone, just fact. That's what hit hardest. He reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a card. Simple black-silver lettering. Derek Steele, Clever Base. She looked at it for a moment, then handed it back. "I don't want favors." He didn't take offense, just nodded. "Fair enough," he said. "But if you ever want to show someone what you're really capable of, my email's on the back." She tucked the card into her apron anyway. By 10:45 a.m., he was gone. By 10:46, Tamara had gone back to work like nothing had changed. But everything had. That night, on the roof of her apartment building in the Bronx, Tamara sat cross-legged with an old ThinkPad on her knees. The skyline blinked in the distance. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, but her mind was far away. In her ears, the echo of her mother's voice. "You're more than this world sees. You just have to prove it to the right one." She opened the ThinkPad, typed in an old line of code, just to see if it still ran. It did. She looked at Derek's card again, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. The next morning, Derek Steele came back. No cap this time. A navy coat, a worn backpack slung over his shoulder, and a coffee order he didn't really want. He sat at the corner booth closest to the service counter, not by chance, but by quiet design. Tamara Clayton barely looked up when he approached, just scribbled "lot" on a paper cup, and moved like clockwork. Her face was unreadable, her body in motion. He waited. She brought the drink over with a calm nod. "You again," she said. "You remember customers." "I remember the ones who ask weird questions." He smiled. "Fair." For a while, he just watched. Tamara handed change to a man in a Wall Street jacket, then helped a teenager troubleshoot a phone-to-printer issue with a quiet patience that startled even the kid's mom. She offered no praise, no ego, just solutions. Derek opened his laptop but didn't type. He was too busy observing the woman who moved like someone who'd been forced to shrink, then taught herself how to survive in the cracks. After a lull, he walked up to the counter again. "You know you've got better logic skills than half my team," he asked. She exhaled through her nose, not smiling. "I've worked with engineers. That's not a compliment." "You've worked in tech." Tamara paused. For a second, something flickered behind her eyes. "I studied computer science," she said. "Got my degree from MIT. Derek blinked. "No offense, but what the hell are you doing here?" She leaned against the bar, crossed her arms, glanced over the cafe like it wasn't hers, and yet it was the only space that had kept her standing. "My mom had a stroke during my second year of grad school. I left to take care of her. My dad split when I was 10, so it was just me and my little sister. We moved back to the Bronx. I started freelancing at night. Then Josie got sick. Bills piled up. I started working here to keep the lights on." He looked at her like he was seeing a door behind a wall he hadn't known was there. "You still freelance?" "Here and there. Fix small bugs, configure networks, write scripts for people who don't know how to spell loop. Nothing glamorous. But you haven't stopped." She shook her head. "No, because when I stop, it's like none of it ever happened. Like I never built anything, never learned anything." Her voice was low, flat, too tired to perform, too proud to beg. "I'm not trying to be rescued," she said, more softly now. "I don't want charity. I just want to get through the month without letting my sister down." Derek leaned forward. "What if I'm not offering charity? What if I'm offering a challenge?" She narrowed her eyes. "Come to the Clever Base office," he said. 1 hour, not an interview, not a pitch. Just look at what we've built. Tell me what's broken." Tamara stared at him. It was quiet behind her eyes. The kind of quiet that happens when someone's too used to being disappointed. "And if I don't find anything, you walk away with a free coffee and the moral high ground." She laughed. For real this time. A quiet, reluctant laugh that cracked her armor. "All right," she said finally. 1 hour, but don't expect miracles." He nodded. "I never do. That's why they still surprise me." That evening, she stood in front of a glass building in Soho, her jacket zipped high against the February wind. Her fingers gripped the strap of her backpack tighter than she meant to. Through the revolving doors, the Clever Base logo pulsed above a marble reception desk. She almost turned around, but she didn't. Inside, Derek met her in the lobby himself. No security badge. No assistant. Just him. "You came," he said. "I said I would." "You nervous?" She looked at him, deadpan. "I fix things people throw away. I live on canned soup and duct tape. I'm always nervous." He smiled. "That's fair." Upstairs, they walked into a conference room. It was sleek, glass-walled, full of whiteboards and standing desks and expensive coffee machines no one knew how to clean. He handed her a tablet and a login. "The staging version of our mobile platform," he said. "Be honest." She sat down without ceremony, pulled the tablet toward her, and got to work. At first, she said nothing, just tapped, scrolled, tilted the device. After 3 minutes, her brow furrowed. At 5, she started writing something in a notepad app. At 10 minutes, she looked up. Your UI breaks on screens under 6 inches. That's going to kill your adoption rate in India. Derek blinked. What? She flipped the tablet around. Also, your error messages aren't localized properly. If someone in Seoul gets a 504, it displays the fallback in German. You're also pulling legacy fonts from a deprecated Google API, which could crash the whole thing in low bandwidth. His mouth opened slightly. That's, a lot. That's 10 minutes. She pushed the tablet back. I don't need your job, she said, but I need to stop pretending I'm not good at what I do. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. He slid a laptop across the table. A live system. Want to fix it? She hesitated, then sat down and started typing. By 10 p.m., she had flagged 3 vulnerabilities the QA team had missed for 6 months. By 11, she had rewritten a script that cut their server load by 18%. At 11:27 p.m., she stood up, packed her things, and said, You should pay your interns better. He laughed. Noted. Also, she added, slinging on her backpack, don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not, he said. I'm making room. She paused at the door. I'm not someone people make room for. You are now. The next morning, Derek walked into the executive boardroom with a proposal. He called it Skills Unseen, an internal initiative to identify, train, and hire underutilized workers, starting with baristas, janitors, assistants, cashiers, anyone whose resume had been buried under life. The board wasn't thrilled. It's not scalable. It's a PR risk. She doesn't even have current certifications. Derek looked at them. She caught a bug that cost us $40,000 last quarter, with a busted ThinkPad, while working full-time in food service. He paused. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm informing you that we're evolving. And evolve they did. Tamara Clayton joined Cleverbase 2 weeks later as a technical consultant. Part-time at first, then full-time. But before she started, she returned to Lex and Beans. She wore the same apron, tied it slowly, made one last round. Then she taped a small brass plaque under the corner table where she used to sit during breaks and fix broken laptops. It read, Tamara's Table, where it began. Josie cried when she saw it. That night, as the city hummed below, Tamara stood by her apartment window and looked out at the skyline that once felt like it belonged to everyone else. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was just passing through. She felt seen. She felt home. The first day she stepped into the Cleverbase office not as a guest, but as staff. Tamara Clayton wore the same boots she'd used to serve coffee for 6 years. Scuffed at the toes, rubber-worn. Real. She didn't know what to expect. A test. A trap. A slow fade into a cubicle where her thoughts would be quietly harvested, her presence tolerated, but never invited. But instead, she was met with raised eyebrows, confused smiles, and silence. Most of the engineers didn't know who she was. A few had seen the Slack thread that circulated after Derek's internal email. A photo of her fixing a BIOS system in a coffee shop, captioned simply, Meet Tamara. She sees what we miss. Some laughed, some scoffed, but none ignored her when she spoke. Because when she did, she didn't pitch. She didn't ramble. She asked questions no one thought to ask. Her first project was a disaster recovery model for cross-platform backups. She redesigned it in 3 days. Her second was a mobile flow prototype that bypassed an entire approval loop. By the end of her second week, the COO asked, "Where the hell did you find her?" And Derek answered, "She was already there. You just never looked." Still, Tamara didn't settle into comfort. She was too used to contingency. At night, she sat on her couch with her laptop in her lap, and her sister's textbooks spread across the table. On her wall hung a note from her mother, faded and taped to a cheap frame. "You were meant for more. Don't let the world teach you otherwise." But the world was slow to learn. At Clever Base, whispers still followed her in the hall. She skipped the usual process. Affirmative action hire feels like a PR stunt. Tamara heard it all, but she didn't answer with explanations. She answered with results. 3 weeks after she joined, Derek launched Skills Unseen officially, a pilot program to identify non-traditional talent from service industries and overlooked sectors. The application wasn't a resume. It was a challenge. Fix this broken script. Explain this API call. Translate this design flaw. Tamara helped write every test, and she ran the interviews herself. No one asked where the candidates went to school. They asked how they saw the problem. One of the first applicants was a night security guard from Newark, who reverse engineered their test API in 14 minutes. Another was a single mom who coded a UI mock-up on her lunch break at a hospital. And when people asked Tamara what gave them the right to take these seats, she answered the same way every time. Talent isn't born in boardrooms. Sometimes it's cleaning them. Months passed. Tamara no longer moved like a shadow. She led morning scrums, presented to stakeholders. She trained teams with a chalkboard and a broken iPad, and made them listen not because she raised her voice, but because every word was earned. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was trying to make room. At a quarterly company all-hands, Derek invited her to speak. She wore a blazer that didn't quite fit and boots that always had. She stepped onto the stage like she'd done it before, even if only in her head. Behind her, a screen displayed a simple headline. From seen to heard, Tamara Clayton. She looked out at hundreds of people. Engineers, investors, interns. "I used to think being invisible was the same as being safe," she began. No notes, no slides, just her. But invisible people don't get heard. They don't get help. They don't get hired. They just get passed over while everyone says, "If only we could find someone who thinks different." She paused. "I've been that someone. So, have many of you. And we've all worked jobs that didn't ask us what we could build. They just asked how fast we could clean." She scanned the room. "And if I'm here today, it's not because I finally became valuable. I always was. It's because someone finally looked up." The room was still, the kind of stillness that only comes after something true. Applause followed. Not loud, not instant, but real. Weeks later, Tamara walked back into Lex and Beans for the first time as a guest. She sat at her table, the one with her plaque underneath, and ordered a coffee from Josie, who nearly cried hugging her. At the next table, a young waitress was resetting silverware, earbuds in. Tamara noticed her watching. When the girl came to refill her water, she hesitated. "You used to work here, right?" she asked. "I saw the name on the plaque." Tamara nodded. Long time. The girl bit her lip. Is it true? You're like working at that tech place now. I am. The girl nodded slowly. So, you really used to be just a waitress? Tamara smiled. No, I was never just anything. I just didn't realize how much more I was. She left a note on her receipt that read, "When you're ready, come find me. There's space now." A year later, Skills Unseen had expanded to 6 companies, with hundreds of workers lifted from kitchens, warehouses, janitorial closets, and overnight shifts. Tamara became the face of a quiet revolution. No press tours, no speeches at Davos, just impact. On her office wall hung a new plaque. You don't have to be important to do important things. TC. And underneath it, a photo, not of her on stage, but of her, years ago, hunched behind a coffee counter, mid-repair, face calm, hands steady, not knowing someone had turned around to watch her. That photo hung framed above every new training room they opened, not as inspiration, as a reminder that brilliance doesn't always introduce itself. Sometimes it fixes your broken system in silence and waits to be seen.